Yeah.
Because I think we have some good opportunities.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's live.
Well, we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the TV set in Florida. We've got an incredible panel of speakers today that can really share some, I think, vital information for why this state is such a great place to film TV shows and all of the assorted possibilities, starting with incentives that the state has to offer. And I believe that as we introduce the panel, you'll understand why you'll be able to get some tremendous information and content today that you may be able to use in the future. That's our hope, that's our goal. So my name is Bruce Orosz. I'll be moderating today, and I own ACT Productions. And what I thought I would do is just ask all of our panelists that have given up their time generously to be here today to at least share their title and a little bit about who they are with you all.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jim Stamatis. I'm Vice President of Operations for Telemundo Studios here in Miami. We produce original content in Miami for national distribution and international sales.
I'm Susan Sims, and I work in the Los Angeles office of the Florida office of Film and Entertainment. And I went out to Los Angeles the day after the earthquake, about 18 years to the day today, and I was supposed to be there 3 weeks. And I'm still there, still in Florida, and I love my job.
Hopefully you've unpacked your bag.
I did, finally, eventually.
Hi, my name is Sam Hill. I'm the producing director at CSI Miami on CBS. Thank you all for coming. There you have it.
Hi, I'm Terry Miller. I'm executive producer of Burn Notice currently, and now live in South Florida. Lived in LA for a while, but grew up here and love shooting in South Florida.
I'm Graham Winick. I'm the immediate past president of Film Florida. Film Florida and the Florida Office of Film and Entertainment are the co-sponsors of this seminar, so thank you all for coming. I'm also, by day, I run the Film and Events Production Office for the city of Miami Beach.
My name is Raul Mateu. I run a company called Fluent Media Productions. It's a packager and producer of scripted television series, and I'm based right here in Miami Beach.
Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for your intros, and we're going to waste no time and try to get right into the meat of the matter, as it were. Obviously, every state, I think we're up to probably 30 plus states that try to attract TV production because they give financial wherewithal and incentives. And one of the things that we do here, clearly the state of Florida has just, in the past year, really decided to step up and try to be competitive with the rest of the U.S. And I thought that I would let Graham kind of kick that off and give you a little bit of the backdrop of what's going on in the legislature so that it allows for the rest of the panel to really give you some of the bones of how they put this project together.
Sure, and I'll certainly let my guests chime in. Florida has a long history in television, going back to Jackie Gleason and Flipper and Gentle Ben, naturally Miami Vice, which helped remake this community in many, many ways. But in the past decade or so, it's fallen off the radar to some degree when we look into competition with the states that have offered very, very generous incentives. I mean, naturally, we're very blessed to have a show like CSI Miami carrying that banner for us all the time. But unfortunately, the show is primarily filmed in Los Angeles. We get them here and there, but it still is a wonderful promotion for us. Landing a show like Burn Notice and finding a way to make that work in the very early stages of our incentive has kind of kept us alive. But our incentive was still always very modest to some degree. And we realized we were just substantially not only losing our market share, but we were losing our entire infrastructure. Crew was leaving to other states, and infrastructure, the business itself was walking away. So we took it upon ourselves. We worked with the Florida Office of Film and Entertainment and our legislators to push it to a substantial level, and in 2010 at the end of the legislative session, we passed a 5-year, $242 million tax credit that provides between 20 and 30% back on Florida expenditures. It is limited to Florida expenditures. And last year at NATPE, we were here promoting that it was a brand new incentive. We were so excited, and we were starting to see the results of these shows come in. We've now had series like Magic City come in, which is about to premiere on Starz in a few months. Burn Notice, obviously, The Finder coming off of that on Fox, and a few other shows. Charlie's Angels, I'll skip, but beyond that,
They tried.
They tried. They certainly tried, and they certainly we appreciate the money they spent here and the work they provided to Floridians. But we're very thrilled, and now moving through a year, we're finding that not only is it a competitive incentive and it allows Florida to show its natural attributes, but on the resale value of these credits, it's holding very, very strong, and people are finding that they're not selling for any less than 90 cents on the dollar, and typically much more so than that. So we're thrilled with that portion of it. Unfortunately, what happened last year is one of our legislators felt the need to kind of balance the entities of television versus other aspects of the incentive, and kind of put turned off the spigot, so to speak, on television for a while. But we're in our current legislative session right now, and there's a bill passing through that has nothing but full support, including from him, that has basically struck out that language and will allow television to continue to flourish here in a short period of time.
Thank you, Graham. I think, we will have a Q&A session towards the end of this discussion, so you can hold your questions till then. Hopefully that'll work for you all. I just think that based on what Graham has just suggested, we've got Terry here. Maybe Terry could just kind of give us a little bit of his thoughts as to the benefits that accrue from, bringing the show here.
Well, we came 5 years ago looking for a facility, and we found it at Dinner Key Auditorium, the old convention center in Coconut Grove. And that was a real boon for us, because we were able to take a big facility and outfit it to our needs, both stage-wise and office-wise. And that, coupled with the incentive, was what made USA bring the show here, truthfully. We have enjoyed for the past 5 years from the city of Miami that facility. And one of the best things about the facility is that right in the backyard we're at a beautiful marina where we can do easy walk and talks if we have to. Within a few minutes we can be in Miami Beach, we can be in Coral Gables, we can be in Fort Lauderdale, we can be in Hollywood, and we can enjoy all of the great locations in South Florida just for a few minutes away. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more perfect place to have a stage. Unfortunately, it's not going to last forever. There are plans to turn it into a park, which I totally get. The building is very old. So hopefully there'll be some new stages that'll come along, which there's discussions currently underway, which is very exciting in the city of Miami. And what I think has happened in the past few years, for us at least, is that we started off with the below-the-line crew support in Miami, with myself as a production manager and later a producer. And everybody else came from LA, most of the other department heads. Currently, we now, and I'm really proud to say this, we have our DP, who is local, we have our production designer, who is local, we have our wardrobe designer, who is local. And really all we bring, and myself, who is local now, so we really just have kind of grown a super crew on the talents that are in South Florida. And I'm really, it's fantastic for us, because it's not only to save the company a lot of money, but there's people growing underneath these guys and gals, and I couldn't be happier about that. And so right now we just bring in the director and the actors for the most part, and even a lot of actors are coming from South Florida as well. So that part is great, and that's exciting for us to see. And with the other shows that are coming into town now, you know, some of the crew likes to split off a little bit. But I think the main thing is that, and I was talking to Susan about this, we talk about it all the time, and Graham, is hopefully with more shows that are coming into town, the people that Graham had mentioned that had left, a lot of good talent that had gone to California and New York and New Orleans are starting to shift back here. And I think once that happens, then the shows that'll come here will really enjoy department head level crew. And it's only a matter of time before that happens again. So
That's terrific. Well,
We should point out real quick, because it's right, I mean, having a facility like the Dinner Theatre Auditorium did make it, and it's something, because we don't have a traditional studio base here, it's something that we've had to create, even with shows like Magic City. And we should point out Commissioner Willie Gort from the City of Miami is here, who was instrumental in helping make that happen as well.
fantastic. I mean, the city of Miami really has come to bat for us. In
that's
a
great.
big
Yeah,
way.
thank you, Willie, for all your
Thank you,
efforts there.
Commissioner.
Well, I think, Terry, that seems to me that what you've done is you've given some great guidance for people like Sam, who comes in and out of here. Maybe you should rethink about moving in and staying here for a while.
Well, I tell you, Sam and I have known each other for 10 years at least, and he came here for, you know, the pilot, and I'm going to let him talk, but we hung around a lot back then, and it was actually before your time, I think, the pilot, and maybe you were here like the episode after that.
Right.
So it really wasn't his doing, but they couldn't find a home here, and it had nothing to do with anything, but I think a lot of Los Angeles pull rather than Miami push. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, just to speak for our show specifically, and you sort of hit the nail on the head with it had less to do with the lack of resources here and more to do with Hollywood politics in terms of the number of decision makers who are unwilling to uproot families and actually make the commitment to move down here. You know, every experience I've ever had here has been incredibly positive, not only from the labor pool, which I think you're underselling the strength of the labor pool here, which is very strong. And the amount of resources that the city provides, not only from the personnel and the people who help make things happen, which especially at a television schedule is, I needed it yesterday, and they're able to jump through those hoops and things happen. So the city's very supportive, but the environment itself provides opportunities which literally do not exist anywhere else in the world. We shoot our show primarily in Los Angeles, mostly due to producer teams and labor that the producers are familiar with and comfortable with, you know, producers, directors, cast members who are unwilling to move, and the support of stage space and other resources that make LA convenient. But I'm here every single year, 2, 3, 4 times a year sometimes, because we simply cannot do anything remotely close to the kind of material that we want to capture anywhere other than here. And it's a great place to be. It's a great place to spend your time and hang out. And I'm super thankful to the other people around me in this row that have really helped allow the kind of opportunities that we found ourselves grabbing onto, and hopefully we've been able to share with everybody else. So I don't know if that answers the question.
No, I think you've touched on a lot of the key points. Obviously, Hollywood, the decision makers base it on a lot of different criteria. I think the incentive here is to try to help get people to rethink that, obviously, to give it a second look and maybe a third look, to try to stimulate that kind of activity. You know, I think that you might have some insights, Terry, to what goes on when you're out in the marketplace, when you're out there. Not Terry, I'm sorry. When you're out in California working the market, what are you hearing?
Well, there's a push. I mean, you can certainly see things like the incentive. If as short-lived as Charlie's Angels was, that's a very good example of people at home saying, "Hey, this is a viable option right now, and let's give it a go." And granted, that's the business, and things don't always happen, but there's an effort being made, and there's opportunities, and so that's starting. And
right.
I don't know, I have a personal feeling that work breeds work, and as shows continue to come, other shows will build on top of that, and it will eventually snowball, and it's just a matter of time, I think, before that sort of all comes back together again and starts hitting.
Sure. Aping.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, Susan and Graham can I think speak to that as far as the new stuff, because Susan's in LA all the time as well, and there's constant interest in this state, and maybe you can.
Am I speaking
Yeah,
to
what do
that?
you,
I mean, just
Yes,
go
there
for
is.
it.
you're on the streets.
Well, I don't want to blame Sam for, those few lean years we had, but okay, Sam.
Yeah, right.
Since
Broad
you're here.
He's here.
Yeah.
No, we're all friends. No, the reason I say this is because it's a very challenging sell to begin with. And then when you have something as iconic as CSI Miami, which, believe me, there's a zillion people that don't know it, doesn't shoot in Miami.
Don't tell anybody, yeah.
When it is the most, for a significant period of time, the most watched show on the planet, genuinely, and it doesn't shoot in Florida, but it's set in Florida, that makes it a very difficult case to go sell someone else on shooting in Florida, because it's not like some show. It's the most watched show on the planet. So obviously there's lots of people that are, I don't want to say falling for it, but you know what I'm saying. So it makes it, so we exploit you in the best possible
Yes.
way. And we don't often share how little you come, because that's just a detail. But as soon as Charlie's Angels announcement was made, the phone was ringing off the wall with who's going to take that space, what's the availability of that crew, how many incentive dollars do you have left, and the incentive, which drives so much of the business. I mean, I continue to say, they would make the Key West story in Albuquerque if that's where the best incentive deal was. And sometimes you try to wrap your head around things and you just go, well, that's the new normal. But when you couple how aggressive the incentive is, how great our weather is, clearly, the fact that we love TV, because look what's here, NATPE, and the fact that Florida has the largest talent pool outside of Los Angeles and New York. In fact, from the cab until we got to the room here, which was a fairly short walk, we ran into 3 clients who don't shoot here, but who all cast here for things. So we like to use everything in our arsenal to generate interest, to get people interested and invested in any possible way, and then the crew, the talent, the incentive, and the support from the local film offices can help close the deal.
Yeah. Well, the support system, I think, is great, and I think your efforts are always...
And I was going to say that, if you don't mind, since after the seminar you're going to be so inspired to shoot in Florida, look for these people. Can I just point out, the new state film commissioner is on the first row right here, Sherry Kerrigan.
Sherry?
And Herb Miller, who's our incentive administrator, a production accountant in his previous life, is on the second row here, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Herb.
And I just have to say what great comments we get, because the fact that we look so smart because our incentive guy is a production accountant. I mean, we just look like, who would have cracked the code on that? We have a Movie Magic budget online where you can go, you don't have to worry if I know what I'm talking about. You can go online and there it says exactly what qualifies and what doesn't qualify. And it's just some of these little service related things that are just so effective. And the fact that, just really, really quick, Sandy from Miami-Dade County Film Office, Sheena from Orlando, Maggie from Naples, Michelle from West Palm Beach, Todd from Jacksonville, and Lindsay Guthrie, the Executive Director of Film Florida. Outstanding resources. Everybody is very supportive in selling each other's area. It's a collaborative effort, and it's truly something that we enjoy, that I can tell you a lot of other states do not. It's, who shot JR, and we just really don't do that. in Florida, and the clients notice it, and it gives them a really, a sanguine feeling that, going on location is scary enough. Somebody's got my back.
Terrific. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I think, Jim is one of the anchor tenants here. They've got a lot of bricks and mortar here. Telemundo is probably, one of the great brands that broadcasts from here, and they've got headquarters here, and they employ a lot of people. So maybe, Jim, you can pick it up and tell us about...
Yeah, I'd love to. Telemundo for Miami, I'm slightly different than the rest of the panel, or most of the panelists here, in that, we're born and bred here. We've been shooting in Miami for about 8 years, and there's a couple aspects that are super important to us, and I'd like to share them. One is that we're currently right now I've got about 450 hours in production as we speak on the street. So I've got about 450 to 500 people literally on the street, in studio and on the street, and the support that we get from the city. Whether it be the film office or whether it be whatever the circumstances is incredible. It gives you a really nice warm and fuzzy feeling because it's a difficult job to be on the street. Any of us know that producing on the street just inherently is a difficult scenario. And the more help that we get, the better off we are. And we get a lot of support, and Telemundo can be a difficult client. And I think that the city historically, or cities historically, have kind of stepped up and helped, and the Film Commission has been behind us 100%, and I can't thank them enough for that. Incentive-wise, it's incredibly important to us. We're doing about 1,200 hours worth of original content per year, which is a lot of hours, and a good share of that is being done in Miami. And I'd love to do more, and we'd like to bring more production to Miami, and we've actually kind of started to swing that pendulum back in this direction. Last year, money kind of dried out toward the latter part of the year, and I personally, kind of want to say that, I think we need to kind of step up our game. I think that there's a lot to offer in this city, but the bottom line is, whether it be us or any other production from California or anywhere else, production follows the incentives. I mean, if you look at the thing, I mean, if I had a movable studio that I could actually move and kind of figure out where the incentive money is going, it would be actually a brilliant idea. But the point being, I think it is important for all of us. Locally, we employ hundreds of people. We support a lot of, cottage industry. Whether it be grip and electric or catering or any other support system. A lot of dollars are poured into the city and are kept here. My home is paid for Telemundo, and there's others on this dais that have the same situation. But the incentive dollars are important, so I think it's something that I encourage us to kind of develop more.
Can I just butt in, because I didn't see him sitting here? Poor Vinny, the City of Miami Film Commissioner. I have been surgically attached to him for 2 days, and I'm sorry I didn't see you, but on the second row. Thank you. I didn't mean to leave you out.
Well, Jim, have you actually made inroads into actually capturing some of the incentives? Have you?
Yeah, actually, we're very active in the incentive. I can say that probably we've done about 18 shows, a series here, and of that, probably at least half of them have been incentivized. Current show that I'm just starting is not, because the money ran out, but 2 of the ones that are currently in production are incentivized. So we've enjoyed that, and hope to continue. I hope they can figure out a system that works for everybody, where having no cap is probably not very very realistic, but at least if there is some sustainable plan in mind that, and I think this is important. I think we need to look at it as a long-term exercise. I think it's very difficult for a show that may be looking to come here, that's going to be based here for a number of years, to say, okay, you got an incentive plan this year, but what about next? What about the next year? We've got to be able to capture a 10-year plan that says, okay, maybe the incentive goes down number-wise, percentage-wise, but it at least is sustainable over a number of years. I personally think that would be a help in driving more business this way. I mean, we have a unique city with a unique set of characteristics, but money is money, and business is business. I think you stated it amazingly. If they could do it at Albuquerque, they would certainly would if they could.
And in reality, the situation is we were really a victim of our own success, and it's completely understandable why a legislator would not immediately get the avalanche of business that was going to result from the very competitive, very sexy, very well thought out incentive plan that we had. And, frankly, there was a run on the bank. So the bottom line is there actually were dollars left, you just couldn't get to them.
Yeah, actually.
Because it was, which made it additionally painful. It's
Yeah,
like,
'cause they're
here's
right
your
there, I just can't
show,
get
here's my money, you can't get here. Exactly. But what happened was our incentive has always been first come, first serve. And this was designed way back in the day. It kept us, above, out of the newspapers and top of minds with our clients, because they know it does not matter who's your buddy, who's your friend, who do you know, it's who's first in line. And you can't believe, or maybe you can, the things people tell us, oh, but ours has a tourism component, and ours is about this, and you star in ours, or whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is, are you next in line? Okay, fine. And because of some of the challenges that we have with our incentive, because it's so Florida-centric and we're so proud of it, we don't rebate on non-residents, and we don't rebate on equipment and other goods and services that come from out of state. We are very fiduciary to the taxpayers, and you know what? The clients get it, and they're not asking us truthfully to be more aggressive on the particulars. They just want a bigger pile of money. So because our incentive has always been first come, first serve, and because there are some things that we don't do that make us ideal for those big films, but what we are great for is TV. We're a TV state, and we're all about that. That's okay with us. Our bread and butter is television. We have TV crews, we have TV stages, we have TV equipment. We're just all about TV. And we love digital media and games and features and all that way cool stuff. But the lion's share of the bodies out there for a long time have been making television and making it really well. So we said, you know what, we're going to do something different. Instead of trying to be kind of pregnant and, all things to all people, let's just front load the business that's trying to beat down our door. But we had to be able to promise them, just like you said, if you're first come, first serve, but then there's no line, then what about next year? Where's my first come, first serve? So that was kind of the trick bag that we got into. So if you were one of the 6 series that got the lifespan of our program, that got your tax credits, you're a happy guy. And if you aren't, then clearly you weren't. But the clients at least got it, and they said, you know what, here's a stay, messy as that may be, and hopefully that's getting fixed literally as we speak, which is why Sherry's down there on her BlackBerry. But the clients got it because they said, here's a state that thinks long term. They get that I need to have a decision 5 years out. And so I think when that gets fixed, that'll be really fixed.
Yeah, I think it is critical to the business plan because, your guys behind you are looking at productions 2 years from now.
Right.
So, they need to understand that, that stream is available to them. And for us, we're different. But if you look at the, combination of home base, whether it be Telemundo or Univision or, you name the vision, right? It's an important component to the industry. We, as Terry was mentioning earlier about training people up, we've had literally hundreds of people go through the facility, and that infrastructure that now exists in Miami, has been put together over those years, and training those people up, and it's actually created the infrastructure necessary to actually capture the Burns and the Charlie's Angels and the next series that will come to town.
Well, I think that speaks really volumes to the incentive program. I think what you two both just illustrated is how important it is to the industry. Mm-hmm. It's a new staple of the business. Raul is formerly William Morris and is now become a producer. So, I'm sure you probably have your thoughts about how impactful this could be on something you might be in development with?
Well, as I hear everybody talk about, what I know for sure is that networks in LA don't make decisions based on crews. It's based on creative and secondarily money. And I have 2 series in development, one at the CW, one at the ABC, which maybe by the end of this panel I'll know whether they're going forward or not. And we've never had a single conversation about where we're going to shoot. It's strictly based on the creative. And then once that switch is turned on, we're going to go to wherever makes the best possible sense and where it's easiest. And there is a push because the writer on my CW show only wants to be in LA, so that's never going to come here. But everything else, it's really where can you really go? And I think the state of Florida is extremely confusing and complicated to really make it viable, to have a long-term plan. And I think this first come, first serve doesn't serve the state well. I understand that politicians need to do that because you've got to be fair and open for everybody else. But I look at what Burn Notice does, and I would give them 3 times the money they're getting, because all TV is not created equal. Unfortunately, that's really the truth. What they do is way beyond however many people they employ here. That show is a huge hit around the world, and the advertisement that does for the state of Florida and for tourism, I'm not quite sure that's really being accounted for the decisions that are being made. So if I were the state of Florida, I would go to all the studios that have big networks attached to them and says, here's $5 million in advance, go use it to fund development, and what we want in return is you have to bring a show to the state of Florida. And I guarantee you, if you did things like that, you would start seeing more work coming down here. But at no point do we just say, hey, there's great crews in Miami. That's just not what we're talking about at that level. And you're fighting a business that's LA-centric. That's really where they want to be. The studios want to be there every day at the set, at the table reads, and all those things. That's sort of my point of view. I live here in Miami Beach. I would love nothing more than my series to be shot here. But the window is so small to make that decision. The networks are picking up their pilots right now. Within 2 weeks, you're ramping up multi-million-dollar businesses is what these shows and these pilots are. And you don't really have a lot of time to fudge with, am I 3rd or 5th in line? Am I going to get the incentive? Is the incentive going to be there? And maybe, some shows that have the flexibility of time, maybe on cable or something, can work the system. But I know I'm not going to waste my time sort of waiting in that line if there's a much better and much more beneficial place to do my work. So, not to be the contrarian to all the good feelings about the state of Florida, because I'm here. I'm purposely here, and I purposely want to be here. But I think there's some things that need to be fixed at the state level and at the legislature level. You can do all the video games in Orlando you want, but what is that doing for the state? How is that projecting the PR side of which is what Burn Notice and CSI Miami does so well? Those are just jobs. I'm not diminishing or discounting those jobs, but I think television has a value way beyond even motion pictures as well, because motion pictures have a short shelf life. They're on the screen for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then they live internationally. But man, Burn Notice is, in CSI, what they do for the state of Florida, nothing else can do.
Can I?
Who invented this guy?
Can I chime in?
Chime in.
Okay, I'm chiming in. At all valid points. Just a couple little things. One is, again, all valid points. And I'm sure people get tired of me saying this, but Florida has more first graders than any state in the United States. And Florida has more senior citizens than any state in the United States. And frankly, how we pulled off a $242 million tax credit is still, could be a reality show in itself. And one of the reasons that they voted yes was because there was so much cover, if you will, in it in terms of the homework and the deliverables. And I know that kind of, takes some of the romance out of it. And I hear this every day, so I completely get it. As for the, so you know, that's what I think every day at my office, like, oh, if only I could be, you know, queen for a day and change this, but, you know. The second thing is, in terms of crews, I completely agree with you, Our biggest problem is because some of our crews are so good, we lose those guys. I mean, I could tell you, last year, year before last, when we ran out of incentive money, and we really did run out of money, I had a map in my office of the United States with little names of all our crew who were all over. This guy's in DC, we got a whole crew in Philly. I mean, everybody was all over. One of the reasons for that is because they are so good and we didn't have any work. But where that helps us is because our incentive is from 20 to 30%, and we are surrounded by 30 to 35%. And states that rebate on above the line, and states that do pass-throughs and loan-outs, and all kinds of things that no legislator in Florida is ever going to let us do. So the time that we sell crews that's the value-added thing. And then finally, as to the decisions in the tiny little space, 3 of the 6 major studio, most prolific television production companies called, and usually back like after Halloween, if you haven't heard, you need to call and say what's the deal. And all of them called and said, okay, we're going into pilot season, we need to know how much money you have, we have this slate of shows, who else is going to be there, who have you committed to, blah, 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 blah. And you're exactly right. I mean, the last of the pilot orders, they're pulling the trigger like right now. And we know because of our legislative session, we're going to miss pilot season. So our best chance is once a pilot shot in North Carolina, and I know we have 2 competitors here, so I didn't say your state. But once a pilot shoots in North Carolina, our only option is to then go try to snag the series. So those are tiny little windows that sometimes, don't go with our legislative season. But that is the coolest idea ever, of going and saying, here.
I guarantee you we'll bring you 10 shows to Florida if we could do that. I mean, if you could front load, if you could sort of lesser the risk of the development situation. I have 3 shows in development with FTVS that does burn notice. If you went to FTVS and says, hey, listen, we're going to guarantee you this money to help sort of offset some of your production costs. We just need to make sure you bring it here.
Right.
It's a different game. When you're sort of chasing it, it's a much harder because you're competing with everybody else.
Which is absolutely true, but because we've reached the cap on our incentive, we've turned down 2 pilots for them, and they budgeted another pilot that they're just holding in the hopes that our incentive gets fixed up enough. Because it's so much easier to have somebody that already loves you say, can I come back for more, than to try to teach somebody else, to be in love with you. But, okay, so don't play hard to get. We're going to get one of your shows.
No, believe me, I would love nothing more. It's just that process has got to be, I think, easier,
And I think moving
yeah.
towards the development process
Absolutely.
anyway is ultimately how we can get to the next level. So,
Right.
So it's something to think about, as this is an ever-changing nature of how we move forward with legislation.
Well, I think you brought up an interesting point also, Raul. You said the first come, first served process. You don't want to get online. I mean, Graham, why don't you address that? Like Charlie's Angel got into the game, and then they dropped out. Now what happens? They lose. Who moves up?
I mean, in theory, that's what we were saying is, hey, now Charlie's Angels, who put in multiple years worth of applications, drops out, and $30 million is free and available. And we said, great, but because the legislator just looked on the piece of paper and said looked at that spreadsheet and said 75% of this incentive is being used for television shows, because they were putting in multiple seasons. He liked to call it burying the money in the backyard, so to speak. He turned off the spigot and said, let's let everyone get back. Let's get back to a more modest portfolio. So we had that opportunity with Jim, with
Right.
Fox, with many other producers to say, hey, we'd love to have you. We have money, but we can't right now. So hold on a little bit. We're going to get this fixed. It did open up opportunities for films and for other digital media, which was his intent in the first place. But that's how it is. The first come, first serve. When we had a lot of money is great, but when you start running out of money, first come, first serve becomes critical and down to the nanosecond sometimes.
But also, not to let the truth get in the way of a good story, there is no line, no waiting in aisle 3. There is no line. Currently, there hasn't been a line in ages, and we have not turned down a show that qualified. We have not turned down a show that qualified since October before last, not once.
What's
So-
the qualifier? What's the...
Well, by that I mean somebody might turn in an application for something that does not qualify. It's a sports event. It's something that by statute specifically says you don't qualify.
Yeah, okay, but is there a number attached to that? Like if somebody here wanted to produce a show for, you know, $500,000 per episode, would that qualify? I mean, are there minimums? Give us a little bit of
You mean when the
review
incentive
process.
language is
Yeah.
clarified? Yes, okay. And let me just say too, all the details are on the website. It is so easy. We're complimented about it all the time because some of them are kind of, you know, convoluted. And plus the fact that, again, did I mention production accountant? And Herb, whose nose is in numbers all day long, loves nothing more than to be able to find clients money they didn't know they were getting. It's like the most fun game. And, you know, that could be another show too, probably. But yes, there's 3 queues, and they're on the website, as I said. The main queue that has a minimum spend of $625,000. There's a second queue for television and television and music videos. And then the indie queue and emerging media, which is kind of our experimental queue and our indigenous people queue and our Go Take a Chance queue, which has a minimum spend of $100,000. And there's all kinds of details about what the requirements are, but it's, you know, for the most part, it's very easy. And the television I think that we're talking about is the high impact television. And high impact, the definition of high impact is you have to have an order for 7 episodes or more and a Florida spend of $625 or more.
Per episode?
Per episode. So there is really a queue for everybody. I mean, there is something in there for everybody. And we keep, you know, the language that we've all cumulatively asked for this year is just like kind of little tweaky administrative stuff that you probably wouldn't even know or care about. So the big ask is, you know, fix the TV. Because the boat is sinking from the weight of the fish jumping in the boat. I mean, they want to come to Florida. They want to come. And there's really good stories going back. And it doesn't, you know, Burn Notice or Magic City or The Glades or In-Betweeners or whatever the show is, them going back to New York or LA and saying, I had a good experience is worth more than we could spend on promotions and advertising and, you know, NATPE shows.
That's great. Well, I think we should open this up for questions. Does anybody would like to ask the panel any questions, or if the panelists...
I should also just clarify for Susan, the website for the incentive administration and for the Florida office is filminflorida.com.
Okay.
And there are books on your chairs if you don't have them, you can grab on the way out, and it's on the front.
Right. And there's a copy of all the documents. Another thing, just then I'll be quiet. Another thing that we do is we actually have a copy of every single document you are ever going to see or want to know about, including the contract on the website. So you don't have to worry about kind of falling in love with us and then having something scary happen to you when you see the contract. It is all on there. And you can call and talk to anybody in our office about any of the little details about it. We can get our counsel on the phone if you have any problem. And people love that. You have to make it easy, 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 easy.
Great. Question in the front row.
Hi, I just have a quick question. It's kind of a two-parter. You believe that the incentives here in Florida have definitely helped you and brought more productions to the state of Florida, correct?
Correct.
So let's say that every state did away with incentives. We no longer have incentives. How would Florida compete then for production?
I am so old that I can actually go back to that happy time where we used to say, you know, I need a jungle, I need a beach, I need a road, I need a school I can blow up. And that was it. It was like, you know, who had the best jungles, who had the best beaches. And that's when, you know, crew and airports and hotels and, you know, sexy accoutrements made lots of sense. At that time and always, we were number 3. Nobody close. Our crew base was number 3. Nobody close. Which is one of the reasons we don't rebate on Florida residents, because for the longest time we had the 3rd largest crew base. So IA and Teamsters, etc. So when we didn't have an incentive and the incentive game was the game everybody was playing, there was no way that we could justify paying a crew person from outside the state to come to Florida to work on a film when we had 1,378 guys sitting around going, "What are you doing?" And then we've seen those people, move away. And in the last year, I think we got some 200 plus of them back, and hopefully more. I'm sticking with number 3.
So our only selling point, or our strongest selling point would be our geography?
But I mean, what she's saying is that it's not that was only our strongest selling point, geography, crew, et cetera. That's what the market was asking for.
Right.
I mean, they would say, we need a bridge that looks like this. How do we find it?
Anymore because we have CPI. So now
Right.
we're in a completely different market. So how would you compete today?
I'm sorry, I'm not following the question.
She's saying that knowing that so much
Without
goes
money, you
digital-
don't compete, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the incentive. I'm serious. It's all about the incentive. It's all
That's the
about
way
the
the business
incentive.
is
It's all
going
about
now.
the money.
I mean,
So then let's not waste time about cruise because
well, no, I
only
must say
said
something.
crew
I've seen shows pick up and leave because they have to bring in too many people from LA. It is about crews. There is an important element about spending money, especially on a pilot. And then Susan makes a great point. If the pilot is shot somewhere else, let's get the series down here. Only because you can make a better deal for the whole crew. But I really literally have seen shows leave because to bring in someone from LA and New York, one person is the same as having 3 or 4 locals. I mean, it doesn't make financial sense.
And if we're 20 to 30%,
Incentives doesn't matter.
and say another state in Michigan, let's say, is 42%, that was the first thing that happened to them. First of all, sweet Janet Lockwood, the film commissioner, had 71 applications on her desk the week of the announcement. And then everybody showed up and said, "Where's the crew?" Well, hello, they weren't here. By the time they brought people in to try to feed the machine, that 42% incentive was, nowhere close to as competitive as us. So, all that stuff matters. It all matters. And that's why you have to go out. I mean, our incentive does not make sense for some projects. It just doesn't. You can talk till you're blue in the face. But we not that we don't try to get them, but there are some that we make a lot of sense for. And we spend more time on those.
On that note, I think we have to start to close up shop. Can we take one more question? Yeah, you could step up to the mic, and if somebody out there has another question, young.
You keep saying how it works and all this stuff, but you really haven't explained to us what it does. I know it's on the website, and you keep telling me.
Oh, you mean what the incentive is?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a 20 to 30% transferable tax credit. Okay? So what happens is it's that's a long answer for the last question. But you want to call my office? I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you all about it. I'm sorry.
A snapshot.
Just an
Oh,
overall.
okay. So it's a transferable tax credit. So what you do is you fill out your application, your budget, your script, your production schedule. You send it into Herb. Herb looks at it all. He calls you. He asks you any questions he has about the little minutia of your application. You get a letter that says, if you in fact do this and spend these dollars in Florida, you qualify for X dollars. Okay, you get a letter with the seal. It's cool. Okay. Then you go and you make your project, whatever that is. And then at the end, your CPA, you take all your production accountant receipts and stuff. You give them to the CPA. He sits there and pours over them, gives them to Herb. We slide food under the door to Herb, who takes another look-see at it, looks at the numbers. We cannot give you more money than you were qualified for or certified for, okay? And at the end, there's some drama that you don't care about because it's too long, but really easy. You get a letter from the state that says this is your tax credit, and then I guess you're trying to figure out what happens then. Okay, then there are people lined up to buy that tax credit from you, like planes on the tarmac. Because, in which country? Did you say
It's
which
from
country?
here, from
yes,
locally.
Right, locally, anyone can buy the tax credit from you, and you can use it for, they can use it for sales tax or corporate income tax, and they will chase you to get it. It's very competitive. The industry cannot believe how competitive it is. It's very well regarded. People are turning it around in some cases. A major studio turned theirs around in 3 days. So getting rid of it will not be a problem at all.
And on that note, we would
I'm
love to
sorry.
stay longer, but thank you very much for your attending. Thank you all the panelists for really giving what a very qualified and detailed look at the incentive program. Thanks so much.
Can we take one of these chairs home?